July 4, 1992, Detroit, Michigan. A baby girl, just 2 years old, takes a bullet to the chest. Her father screams. Blood everywhere. The shooter? Just a teenager, who didn't even know her name. That night, something snapped in Detroit, and the city went to war with itself. Blocks burned. Boys vanished. Mothers buried their sons beside enemies they never met. This wasn't just gang violence. This was a war of pride, power, and ghosts. Every word in this story is true. Every body buried was someone's baby. Subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story, and stay to the end, because the last name on that list might still be walking. April 7, 1992, 3:34 p.m., Dexter Avenue and Fullerton Street, Detroit, Michigan, USA. It was a warm spring day. Children played on cracked sidewalks. The hum of beat-up Buicks and Cutlasses filled the air. A basketball thudded in an alley behind an abandoned duplex. Then, a single shot. Then 6 more. The basketball rolled away slowly. And just like that, the Dexter Boys and the 7 Mile Crew were at war. A turf war that would kill more than 120 people over the next 12 years. And change the face of Detroit forever. Who fired the first shot that day? Why did 2 teenage crews become execution squads? And why did it take the city more than a decade to stop the bloodshed? This is the true story of the Detroit turf wars. In the early 1990s, Detroit was bleeding. Jobs were gone. Homes were abandoned. Blocks were crumbling. And in the vacuum, young men stepped in. 2 crews emerged from opposite ends of the west side. The Dexter Boys, based around Dexter Avenue, Linwood, and Davison, led by Corey Sinode Brantley, 19 years old, known for flashy cars, corner control, brutal discipline. The 7 Mile Crew, holding turf north of 7 Mile Road, led by Kendrick K.D. Dorsey, 21 years old, known for heavy weapons, deep connections, no tolerance for disrespect. At first, they ignored each other. But then, business grew. And Detroit's drug trade had only so many corners. In 1991, a new strip of abandoned houses between Dexter and Livernois became what the police called the Red Zone. No lights. No rules. Just dope houses, roving lookouts, and gunshots in the dark. KD's crew moved in. But Sinode claimed the Red Zone had always belonged to Dexter. They argued once. Then again. And on April 7, 1992, the argument turned to war. At exactly 3:34 p.m., a red Cutlass Supreme pulled up to the corner of Dexter and Fullerton. KD's younger cousin, Terrence D. Rock Miles, 17 years old, stepped out. No words. Just a stare. Inside a nearby barber shop, Sinode's best friend Anthony Tone Wells looked up and walked outside. It's unclear what was said, but witnesses heard the first shot, then 2 more. Tone fell face first on the pavement, bleeding, motionless. By the time police arrived, the Cutlass was gone, and Detroit was at war. Corey Sinode Brantley, age 19, lived with his grandmother. Known for buying groceries for elderly neighbors. Also known for ordering beatdowns when corners were disrespected. Kendrick K.D. Dorsey, age 21, former high school basketball player. Dropped out after his brother was murdered. Believed to have financed at least 3 stash houses. Both men were smart, charismatic, and deeply respected. But both carried guns. And both were chasing power. In a city no longer run by law. At the time, the Detroit Police Department was underfunded and outgunned. Only 8 homicide detectives covered the entire west side. 911 response times averaged 38 minutes. Officers described the red zone as a no-go zone after dark. Meanwhile, city leaders focused on rebuilding downtown casinos and sports stadiums. The neighborhoods were left to rot. And in that rot, bullets bloomed. April 12, 1992. A quiet funeral home on McNichols Avenue. C-Note sat in the front row, sunglasses on, suit too big for his frame. Tone's mother screamed so loud, the organist stopped playing. Outside, Dexter Boys stood on guard. Handguns and belts. Eyes watching every car that passed. That night, someone tagged a brick wall nearby. Tone lives. 7 Mile dies. And by sunrise, someone else had written under it in red spray paint. Let's see. Over the next 8 weeks, shootings became daily. KD's cousin was found dead behind an auto shop. A Dexter lieutenant was shot outside a gas station. A 13-year-old girl was hit by stray gunfire on her porch. The news gave it 2 minutes at the end of the broadcast. But the streets knew. This wasn't random violence. This was war. This is a real story. Every fact you hear is public. You can check it yourself. If real-life mysteries leave you breathless, subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. Because the next truth we uncover might hit even closer to home. May 1992. A raid on an abandoned house yields an AK-47 and a notebook. Inside the notebook, a list of names. Each one crossed out. Except for the last line. See note. May 11, 1992, Detroit, Michigan, abandoned house on Cortlandt Street, at 2:47 a.m., SWAT officers raided a 2-story crack den. There were no lights inside. Just moldy walls, rotting carpet, and a rusted-out refrigerator with a dead rat inside. They didn't find drugs. They didn't find guns. What they found was a black and red spiral notebook. Torn, stained, pages curled at the corners. Inside were 22 names. Street names. Real names. Scrawled next to each. Red check marks. 12 names had been crossed out completely. 2 had X's in blood red ink. 1 page had only a single word. Retaliate. At the bottom, circled twice. See note. The list was real. And death was following it. By June 1992, 16 people had been murdered within a 2-mile radius between 7 Mile and Dexter. None of the killings made the front page. None led to arrests. No one talked. Because the war had a new rule. If you talk, you die. According to court testimony and survivor accounts, these were the rules enforced on the West Side during the turf wars. No talking to cops. Not even a nod. If you shoot and miss, finish it. Tagging turf meant claiming it in blood. Family wasn't off limits, only babies. Even children learned to duck when gunfire erupted. They called it the game of freeze. And the schools? Empty. By 1993, McKinley High attendance had dropped by 40%. Because the halls weren't safe. As murders rose, alliances inside the crew started breaking down. Some Dexter Boys defected to 7 Mile, for money. Some 7 Mile members left for gangs in Chicago or St. Louis. But 2 men remained at the center. Corey C-Note Brantley and Kendrick K.D. Dorsey. They never met in person again. But they hunted each other from opposite ends of the city. Through lookouts. Through cousins. Through cold stares from passing Chevys. And through bullets. July 4, 1992. It was supposed to be a celebration. Fireworks crackled over the Detroit River. Families watched from rooftops and front porches. At 9:23 p.m., 4 boys in dark hoodies walked calmly through a crowd gathered near Dexter and Richton. They didn't speak. They opened fire with MAC-10s and Tech-9s. By the time the screaming stopped, a 10-year-old girl was dead. A 23-year-old college student was paralyzed. A 61-year-old Vietnam vet had taken 4 bullets in the chest. The shooters vanished into the smoke. Police called it a random act. But C-Note knew better. He had seen KD's tag near the corner that morning. All y'all get and got. Just 3 days later, C-Note's crew hit a house on Whitcomb Street. A known 7-mile safe house. At 3:41 a.m., neighbors heard 4 pops. Then a pause. Then 3 more. Inside, police found a 19-year-old shot execution style in the bathtub. A 22-year-old curled near the front door, face down. A bloody message scrawled on the wall. Not random. Never was. It was signed, DB4L, translation, Dexter Boys for Life. The Detroit PD was cracking. In August 1992, internal memos show pleas to the mayor's office. This is an escalating civil war. We need federal help. But help didn't come. Too many murders. Too few resources. And Detroit's homicide clearance rate fell below 34%. Meaning, most killers walked free. One woman, name redacted in police files, tried to testify. She saw the July 4th shooters. She called Crime Stoppers. 2 days later, her car exploded in her driveway. She survived. But she left the state that same night. No charges were ever filed. Fall 1992. Police arrested a 13-year-old boy named Darrell Lil D. Sanders. He was caught carrying a Glock 17. When asked why, he answered, "Because I'm on the list." Police didn't believe him. Until he showed them a folded page in his sock. Another hit list. 15 names. Lil D's was number 11. And underlined. They tried to put him in protective custody. He escaped within 72 hours. To this day, he's never been seen again. Late 1992, a surveillance wiretap caught this quote from KD's second-in-command. "This ain't even about money anymore. This is about whose name lives longer." Coming next in Part 3. The city's secret plan to pit the gangs against each other. The killing that finally broke the silence. And the chilling message that brought the FBI to Detroit's doorstep. November 1992, inside the DPD War Room, Detroit, Michigan. Detective Reginald Claymore stood over a map of the West Side. It was covered in pins, red, blue, and black. Each one marked a body. Each pin told a story no one was listening to. The press didn't care. City Hall had moved on. But Claymore saw something. A pattern. Shootings weren't random. They moved clockwise, block by block, from 7 Mile toward Linwood. And worse, victims weren't just gang members. They were witnesses. Friends. Sometimes. Family. November 13, 1992, 7:04 p.m. A 2-year-old girl named Kiana Ricks was shot and killed in a drive-by on Puritan Street. She was sitting on her father's lap in the front seat of a Chevy Malibu. Bullets tore through the windshield. The father survived. But Kiana died instantly. She was not a target. Just in the wrong car. On the wrong street. Detroit broke that night. The next morning, Kiana's photo was on the front page of the Detroit Free Press. "They're killing babies now." TV news crews flooded the neighborhood. The mayor called it a tragedy. But people on the block had one question. Where were you all last month? Behind closed doors, the Detroit PD tried something radical. Instead of hitting the crews directly, they created a fake gang. Undercover officers formed Whitewood Clique, a fictional crew based on fabricated turf near Fenkel Street. They staged beefs on purpose. Painted fake graffiti. Even leaked fake taunts onto the street. Goal? turned the Dexter Boys and 7 Mile crew against a third enemy, and draw them out. It worked. Too well. December 1, 1992. Dexter Boys raided what they thought was a Whitewood stash house. It was actually a front, wired with cameras. DPD expected arrests. Instead, gunfire. 3 Dexter members were shot. 1 died. The news ran with it. Drug war turns inward. But in the street? C-Note was furious. He believed 7 Mile had set them up. He didn't know it was the cops. And so, the retaliation began. Jamal Butta J. Dorsey, KD's 19-year-old cousin, was gunned down at a house party on Christmas Eve 1992. Witnesses say he never saw it coming. He was shot in the back while dancing. No one claimed the hit. But everyone knew. It was Dexter's move. And it shattered what little humanity was left in KD. FBI wiretaps from later testimony revealed this chilling quote. "Don't care who it is. If they breathe in and they from Dexter, they gotta go." What followed was 6 months of blood. January to June 1993. January 4th, man found beaten and burned in an alley near Livernois. January 19th, drive-by at an apartment on Clements, 3 dead, 2 injured. February 11th, teacher caught in crossfire outside public school. March 2nd, C-Note second-in-command arrested with $200,000 in cash. April 20th, 7 Mile lookout gunned down in front of mother. May 6th, 4 Dexter Boys ambushed near Grand River. June 12th, a family of 5 found shot execution style, believed to be mistaken identity. By summer, the body count crossed 60 confirmed dead. And those were just the ones reported. June 17, 1993. Detroit's Homicide Task Force received a manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. It showed C-Note, hands bound, bleeding from his nose, surrounded by masked men. On the back, written in marker. "This ain't about drugs no more. This about WHO God saves." Police went silent. They knew what that meant. Someone had flipped the script. 2 weeks later, the FBI formally opened Operation Bloodline. They launched RICO investigations. Tapped phones. Followed bank records. Offered deals. They were done waiting for the city to fix itself. By fall 1993, they had enough to start indictments. But first, they needed someone to flip. And they got one. Marcus M. Harrington, age 25. Former 7 Mile hitman. Turned himself in after his younger brother was murdered, by accident, in a Dexter retaliation. M. handed over a flash drive. On it, phone recordings, names, drop locations, kill orders, and maps of body burial spots in abandoned lots. He signed an immunity deal. And within 60 days, the feds moved. On October 19, 1993, federal agents, U.S. Marshals, and Detroit SWAT conducted simultaneous raids at 14 locations. They arrested 11 members of the Dexter Boys, 9 members of the 7 Mile crew, and 4 dirty cops involved in covering up hits. Among the charges: racketeering, murder for hire, drug trafficking, witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit murder, federal weapons violations. KD was captured in a motel in Windsor, Ontario. He was trying to flee to Toronto. In one of the most chilling scenes from the case, C-Note was found alive, chained to a radiator in a vacant 7 Mile basement. Barely 110 pounds. But alive. He told the FBI, "I wanted it all. I just didn't know it came with ghosts." trial testimonies that revealed horrifying truths. KD's final words in court. The families who still live between Dexter and 7 Mile. And the haunting legacy that lingers in Detroit's silence. January 1994, United States District Court, Eastern District of Michigan. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disinfectant. The benches were full. Mothers, brothers, journalists, gang members in suits. Federal agents sat stiff, hands folded over notepads. And on the defense table, Kendrick K. Dorsey, face stone cold, jaw tight. Cameras weren't allowed inside. But the city was watching. Because what was about to unfold was not just a trial. It was a confession of what Detroit had become. The prosecutors opened with a chart. Dozens of photos, arrows, timelines, names. They painted KD as the CEO of a murder empire. Their key witness? Marcus M. Harrington. The man who once ran point on KD's killings. Now, he faced him across the courtroom. M.'s words, court record. We didn't just sell dope. We ran blocks. If someone even looked like they might flip, we handled it. KD had one rule: fear gets more respect than money. The courtroom gasped when M. described the safe house game. New recruits were locked in basements with bodies, told to clean up. If they cried, they were out. If they didn't blink, they got a gun. One juror wept openly. Another had to step out. C. Note, now barely recognizable, took the stand on day 7. His voice was low. He was asked why he kept fighting. Because I didn't know how to stop. And because I knew KD wouldn't stop either. He looked straight at KD across the courtroom. You tried to bury me. But God ain't done with me. KD didn't blink. FBI agent LaDonna Simmons revealed a chilling piece of evidence. This is the original hit list, recovered from a 7 Mile stash house. It includes 26 names. 17 are confirmed deceased. The jury went silent. It wasn't just a war. It was a purge. On day 14 of the trial, the father of Kiana Ricks, the 2-year-old girl killed in the drive-by, asked to speak. He held up her tiny pink jacket, blood-stained. This is all I have left of my baby. She didn't sell drugs. She didn't bang. She just sat on my lap. He looked toward the defense table. I want every man in this room to remember that. The room didn't make a sound for 57 seconds. That silence hit harder than any gunshot. His lawyer argued. The gangs weren't organized, just chaotic youth. There was no direct evidence tying KD to ordering killings. Witnesses were criminals with incentive to lie. KD never testified. But in a moment caught by a sketch artist, he wrote the word liars in block letters on his notepad. He never denied being part of the crew. He just denied leading it. March 5, 1994. After 6 weeks and 89 witnesses, the jury deliberated for 8 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on racketeering, murder conspiracy, weapons trafficking, drug distribution, attempted murder. Kendrick K. Dorsey was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms. He showed no emotion, just stood, nodded, and walked. One juror later told the press. He looked like he knew he'd be back in someone else's story. C-Note cooperated with prosecutors on several cases. In exchange, he received a 40-year sentence with eligibility for parole. By 1996, more than 60 individuals had been convicted in relation to the Detroit turf wars. Some took plea deals. Others disappeared. A few were never found. Between 1992 and 1998, over 100 properties on Dexter, 7 Mile, and Linwood were seized. 32 bodies were recovered from abandoned buildings. 14 murals went up on Detroit's west side, tributes to the lost ones. But not everyone was at peace. Many residents said the trauma stayed. Every loud pop still makes us stuck. My kids sleep under the bed, just in case. The ghosts. They don't forget your name. In 1999, the city launched Project Phoenix, a community restoration initiative. They promised to rebuild the neighborhoods wrecked by the war. But by 2004, only 9 homes had been renovated. The rest remained boarded, burned, or bulldozed. Most families had moved away. And yet, new kids walked those same streets. Same corners. Same names. But fewer guns. For now. In 2006, a local journalist received an anonymous letter postmarked from a federal prison. It read, "They call us monsters. But we were boys, raised in empty houses, taught by streetlight. We made choices. Some you'll never understand. And even now, at night, I still hear the baby crying." It was signed, KD. Where they are now, see note, Katie, and the last survivors. Emotional interviews with family members who stayed behind. Detroit today, what's changed, what hasn't? And the final haunting truth that history nearly forgot. Detroit, Michigan, 2010 to present day, 18 years have passed. The gunshots have faded. The war is over. But the shadows never left. And for the families still living between Dexter Avenue and 7 Mile, the silence is sometimes worse than the war. Because the silence is full of memory. Corey C. Note Brantley. Incarcerated at Milan Federal Prison, Michigan. Eligible for parole in 2034. Teaches GED prep classes and leads a conflict resolution group for inmates. In a 2020 letter to a Detroit pastor, he wrote, "We destroyed the streets we loved because nobody told us we were worth saving." Kendrick K.D. Dorsey. Serving 6 life sentences without parole. Housed at ADX Florence Supermax in Colorado. Refused all interview requests. According to federal documents, KD spends most days in silence. A 2017 mental health report described him as detached from the world. Marcus M. Harrington. Entered witness protection. Believed to live under a new identity in the Midwest. In his final interview before disappearing, he said, "I flipped because my little brother took a bullet for nothing. I still hear him cry out in my sleep. You don't stop hearing that. Dexter Avenue still bears the scars. Some homes are new, others remain burned out. The red zone has been bulldozed and renamed Phoenix Square. A community garden grows where a crack house once stood. Kids laugh where gunfire once echoed. But if you ask the elders, they remember everything." Mrs. Leona Wells, 67, lost both her sons during the war, one to a bullet, the other to prison. Her voice trembles when she speaks. "They were just kids. They wore baggy pants and said dumb things. But they weren't born killers. The city left us, and the streets raised them." She walks to the corner every Sunday and leaves 2 candles. One for Tone. One for Butta J. She says it's the only church she trusts now. In 2015, activists unveiled a public memorial mural along Fullerton Street. It's called, "The Wall of Names." It lists 143 confirmed victims of the Detroit turf wars. First names only. Ages. Dates of death. At the bottom, it reads, "We remember them. Because the city never did." Nia Ricks, the older sister of Kiana, the 2-year-old girl killed in the drive-by, now works as a trauma therapist. She was 9 when her sister died. Today, she's 39. She's soft-spoken, measured, In a 2022 interview, she said, "For years, I hated Detroit. I hated the porch, the street, the car. But healing didn't come from leaving. It came from listening." She now runs a non-profit called Hear Her Cry, helping young girls process grief from community violence. She ends her workshops with this line: "You're allowed to keep going. That's not betrayal. That's legacy. This is not fiction." Every person named, every shooting date, every quote and conviction, all drawn from verified records, news archives, and public testimony. You can check it yourself. Because the pain of these families is real. And their silence deserves to be heard. An abandoned home near Linwood still stands. Cracked windows. Half the roof gone. Weeds crawling through broken floorboards. Spray painted on one surviving wall. C note lives. Katie dies. Someone crossed it out. Underneath, written in thick black marker. We all lost. And they did. What does justice look like when the city forgets the beginning? Were these boys monsters? Or victims of something older? Can a city forgive its own history? If you're drawn to real stories that stay with you, subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. Because every week, we reveal the darkest truths hidden in plain sight. Watch the next video on your screen, or dive into our playlist of real crimes and lost voices. The next story might be even closer to home.